Alright guys, so we're just working on a how-to here in Rainbird Cirrus. So we're setting up the flow manager, and we're going to show you a couple different ways you can do this. There's a mapping function here where you can actually build it on the map, and then there's like a manual input sort of a thing here. So we'll show you what you're doing with that. So I've just got our irrigation map open on the side over here. I'm just going to reference that while I kind of work through. And so essentially you're on your home page for Rainbird Cirrus here, and we're in tab 3 up at the top. And then we're going to click on this flow manager icon. Bring that up. It'll bring you up with this table. So this is essentially the manual way to input all the different data regarding your irrigation system. Essentially, this is highlighted. You right click on it, click add a pump. So essentially here you have to name the pump. We're just going to call it Peter for the example here. And then here we've got to put our capacity in gallons per minute. And it'll show up at the top here. They have all these, like a lot of different places you can put pumps in here. So if you have more than one pump or booster pumps or whatever, it'll increase. So like if you put, more gallons per minute in number 2 here, it'll increase up at the top. We're just going to run with one pump for this example. So we'll hit OK. We've got a pump Peter here. So you're going to left click on it to highlight it. Once it's blue, you know you're highlighted on it. And then you're going to click add a branch. So I'm just going to look at our sheet over here. So right where my mouse is here, this is actually where our pump station is. And coming off this pump station, there's a 10-inch main line that runs along here and then goes this direction on the course. So essentially, where we have our pump here, we'll hit add a branch, and then we're going to add that 10-inch main line. So we'll call that 10-inch main line. And then we got to put the capacity. So for the capacity for these lines, you have to go to a friction loss chart. So we're working with 8 high-density polyethylene DR11, 160 psi. And then you go into the 10-inch here, right in this column here, and then you go down and you see what the maximum GPM is under 5 feet per second. So these numbers here are the velocities. So you can see here it's 900 gallons per minute at 4.88 feet per second. If you go any higher than that, it's outside of the recommended range. So you have to stay within that. So that's how we got that number. When you jump in here, we'll throw the 900 in for that. We'll hit OK. So now we've got our mainline branch added. And then pretty much we're just going to go through the course and add everything. So like, for instance, you can see over here on this map, we have a little 3-inch line coming off. So you can click on this, and you can click add a branch onto this one. We'll call this 3-inch line at 15 green. And you'll see what happens here is you run out. They only give you so much space for text, so you can just kind of code things. So say 3-inch. You can usually avoid, don't use the word inch, just use the symbol to save yourself some space. And then again, we're going to jump back into this friction loss chart, but now we're going to go in for 3-inch. Essentially, we're going to look, and the maximum under 5 feet per second is 90 gallons per minute. When we jump back into Rainbird here, we're going to code this with 90 gallons per minute. So now we have a main line coming off that. And the reasoning behind telling it, the flow manager, how many gallons per minute the pipes can handle, is it needs to know that so that it doesn't try to put too much water through the pipes. So you're not trying to put 200 gallons per minute through a 3-inch line, or more than 900 or less than, for that matter. So if you go over, your feet per second is going to increase. It's going to kill pressure, and it's going to cause issues on your course. And you're not going to have enough pressure out of your heads. Things aren't going to be spraying far enough. Things aren't going to come on. So you have to be really cognizant of that when you're building this software. And then essentially that 3-inch main line that comes off the main line, this 3-inch line here, goes to this green complex here on 15, for example. And we want to add what you call a flow zone to that. So we'll call this 15 green, essentially. And this is the same 3-inch line, so we'll keep with our 90 gallon per minute. And we'll hit OK, and that gives us a flow zone here. So now we're just working with the 15 green complex, and now we can assign stations to it. So here at the top, you'll see you got course number 1, and then you go to hole 15, find hole 15 here, and then you select a complex. So we're working with the green, and you click it, and it'll give you all 5 stations for that green that you've assigned to it. And you can basically just click all. It'll put in all those stations into the complex. Then you just hit OK, and now if you expand that green's flow zone for 15 green has all the things built into it. You pretty much just have to go around the whole course. If we look back at our map here, You pretty much just have to go through and add all the main lines and everything. Like for instance, right here where I've got my mouse, the main line splits off to 6-inch. It's the same thing. You're going to have to add a 6-inch main line and reference your friction loss charts to see how many gallons per minute that can flow, and pretty much just build your whole course within this. This is a pretty tedious way to do it, and there's actually a better way I'd like to show you with the mapping of how to do it. Alright guys, so I'm going to show you an easier way to upload all the irrigation information for your piping on Rainbird here. So instead of going into the flow manager from the home page here, we'll jump over to this mapping icon here. We're going to go into the compass here. We're going to click, it's the same icon, this flow manager on the left hand side here. And we're going to bring that up. And it's a really similar process. So you got your pump, your branch, all the same stuff. So we're going to add a pump right along here where our pump house is. It's going to ask us for a name. So pump. You're going to put your capacity in here in gallons per minute. Hit OK, and it'll make a pump. And then essentially you can go along and map out all the piping for your course. So we have a 10-inch main line that comes along here. You can see from our irrigation map. This is our pump house right here. There's a 10-inch main line coming along. That goes over here. We're going to jump back in here. We're going to hit add a branch. We'll select one of our pumps, and then we'll be able to click where we want the branch to go to. So one end of it will start at the pump, and the other end will happen wherever you click it. So we'll call it 10-inch main line. And then put in the gallon per minute. We know from our friction loss charts that's good for 900 gallons a minute. You'll hit OK, and then you'll be able to go along, hit branch, be able to go along and map out where the pipes go. So this is the same thing, 10-inch main line, 900 gallons per minute. It's the same as before. The flow manager essentially needs to know how much water can flow through the given pipes on your course. And so basically we've got our main line built here. We just go along and put the lines wherever they are. Anytime they change size, obviously you need to change the gallon per minute of them. And so here, if we want to build a flow zone where we can put some heads in, same as we did before. So you got your greens complex here, for instance. You can hit flow zone, and then you'll click where you want the flow zone. So I'll just stick it out of the way in the pond here. It'll ask for a name, so we'll call it number 15 green, and then the capacity. So when we go to back to our map here for this, we can see the line that branches off our main line, actually next down to a 3-inch line, and we know from our friction loss charts that's only good for 90 gallons per minute. So you have to tell it that so that it knows it can't flow any more than that through there. So now you have a flow zone built in here. You can essentially right-click on the flow zone and hit Assign Stations, and then you can basically just click on the heads on your green, and it'll assign the stations. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that a little bit tighter. So you can see here, this is our flow zone, and we've just been clicking wherever the heads are on our greens. You can see, right click, it gives you that assign stations, and you can click and it'll put the stations to the different heads on your green. I'll show you guys a little bit more of the main lines here. So we'll click on branch, click on here. So like for instance, we have our main line comes along here. So we'll keep going with the 10-inch main line. Same thing, 900 gallons a minute. Hit OK. Now we've got a main line coming down here. But then, for instance, if we have it tee off here, saying it goes to a 10-inch and a 6-inch, and say we go to add another branch over here, click here, and we'll call this 6-inch, 6-inch main line. In there. 6-inch main line. We know that a 6-inch main line from our charts can handle 340 gallons a minute. We'll hit OK, and we can come across here with our 10-inch line. And we just need to make sure as we go through the course that we assign the flow of all the pipes to the for our course, so that it all corresponds. So that when the flow manager is trying to set up, say when you try to turn on some heads down here on the other end of the 6-inch line, it knows that you're limited to 340 gallons a minute. It's not trying to push 900 through because it thinks there's a 10-inch main line. It's really crucial that all of that stuff is correct, because you can end up with some real problems if it's trying to push too much water or not enough. Heads won't work properly, they won't come on, or you'll have pipe failures from too much flow, water hammer, and so on and so forth.